Why was Eko Atlantic built? Who owns it? Why is it so controversial? Has it worked? When most people hear about Eko Atlantic, they think about luxury apartments, exclusive neighborhood, and expensive cars. Honestly, so did I. Until I started researching it. You see, Eko Atlantic wasn't built because Lagos wanted another luxury city. It was built because Lagos was running out of options. Which leads to the question that you and I should be asking. Why was Eko Atlantic built? Who owns it? Why is it so controversial? Has it worked? And what is the Great Wall of Lagos? Stick with me as we are driving this home together. Long before the skyscrapers, long before the private marinas, long before the luxury apartments, there was a shoreline called the Bar Beach. If you grew up in Lagos, chances are you or someone you know has a memory of this place. Families came here on weekends. Children rode horses along the shore. Churches held baptisms here. Concerts were organized here regularly. For many, it wasn't just a beach. It was part of Lagos' identity. But while everyone was enjoying the coastline, the Atlantic Ocean was quietly changing its trajectory. Every year, the waves pushed a little further inland, bit by bit. The shoreline disappeared, roads were threatened, buildings became vulnerable, and suddenly coastal erosion became one of Lagos' biggest environmental challenges. But here is something most people do not know. The story didn't actually begin with the Bar Beach. It began far more than 100 years ago. Between 1908 and 1912, during the British colonial rule, the Lagos Harbour moles, known as the East and West Mole, were constructed to improve access into the Lagos Harbour. To be fair, it was an engineering success in that era, but it also came with an unintended consequences for the future. Over time, that process contributes to severe coastal erosion that consumed the Bar Beach and also threatened to consume a huge part of the Victoria Island, Lagos, if nothing was done. That single threat gave birth to Eko Atlantic City.
The fact is that today, a liability that threatens the entire Victoria Island of Lagos has been arrested and is being converted to a great asset of prosperity.
The solution sounded almost unbelievable. Instead of trying to protect the old shoreline forever, engineers proposed something far more ambitious. And what was it? To create an entirely new land from the Atlantic Ocean. Millions of cubic meters of sand were dredged from the Atlantic seabed. Over time, that sand formed approximately 10 million square meters of reclaimed land. If you put that into context, that's nearly 5 times the size of Monaco. Now, you can imagine the amount of work that was done here. And that's not all. Roads followed, drainage systems, power plants, underground utilities, foundations were laid. In fact, what was once almost destroyed by the Atlantic waves slowly became one of Africa's most ambitious real estate projects in history. Here is the question that fascinates me all the time. If the Atlantic Ocean destroyed the Bar Beach, what would now stop it from destroying Eko Atlantic City? Stay with me as we unravel this mystery together. This is the Great Wall of Lagos, and in many ways, it's the real hero of this story. Stretching for approximately 8.5 kilometers, it was designed to absorb the tremendous force of the Atlantic waves before they reach the reclaimed city. Thousands of specially engineered concrete armor units works together to reduce waves energy to protect the coastline. Without this structure, the same waves that washed away the Bar Beach would eventually do same to Eko Atlantic. Now we know how it was built. Another question remains: who owns Eko Atlantic and how was it funded? The answer isn't as simple as you might think. Eko Atlantic City is being developed through a partnership between the Lagos State Government and South Energy X Nigeria Limited. If you've lived in Lagos for a while, there's a good chance you've heard another name before: the Shagori. That's because the South Energy X is part of the Shagori's group of companies, one of Nigeria's largest and influential business conglomerates. Founded by brothers Gilbert and Ronald Shagori, the group has built presence across construction, manufacturing, technology, healthcare, real estate, and several other industries. So when Eko Atlantic was conceived, it wasn't just a government project. It became one of the biggest public-private partnerships in Africa's modern history. Around 250,000 residents are expected to live here. 150,000 daily commuters. A modern financial district, residential neighborhoods, hotels, schools, hospitals, parks, and you can name them, in a city built almost entirely from reclaimed land. Projects of this scale rarely goes without controversy. Supporters sees Eko Atlantic as one of Africa's greatest engineering achievements. Meanwhile, critics ask different questions. Has reclaiming land for Eko Atlantic changed coastal erosion elsewhere? Has the project mainly benefited wealthy investors? At this point, the biggest question isn't whether Eko Atlantic can withstand the Atlantic Ocean anymore. It's whether protecting one coastline could unintentionally put pressure on another. Earlier, we talked about an engineering solution during the British colonial era regarding the harbour moves that unintentionally redirected the waves that would eventually wipe away the Bar Beach. Today, some expert critics are asking a similar question. Could Eko Atlantic solve one problem while unintentionally creating another? The answer depends on how you measure success. The coastline around Victoria Island has gained significant protection through the Great Wall of Lagos. Construction continues and businesses have established their presence. Major international organizations, including the US, have chosen Eko Atlantic as their future home for one of its biggest consulates ever built. At the same time, the city is still growing. Large portions remains under development. The debate about affordability, environmental impact, and long-term sustainability continues. In other words, the story isn't finished yet. A few decades ago, people came here to spend the day at the beach. And today, they are building the future. Whether Eko Atlantic becomes one of Africa's greatest engineering success stories, or one of its most ambitious experiments yet, history will decide. The real story of Eko Atlantic wasn't about luxury. It wasn't about the skyscrapers. And it certainly wasn't about another city. It was about what people are willing to build when the nature refuses to negotiate. And that is a story hidden in plain sight. My name is Staro Thompson. I'm so happy you watched to this point. Thank you for the support. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe, because every week we bring stories that uncover places, people, ideas that shapes Africa in ways that we never noticed. See you in the next episode.